Lake of the Ozarks. It's William Holtz here on Lake TV for a special edition of my Mic'd Up podcast. Before I introduce you to our guest, we got a special 4-part series leading into Tuesday, August 2nd election right around the corner. I've been claiming and saying this is the most important election in the history of Camden County, and that is absolutely true. Our guest today, Nathan Rinne, joining us here at Lake TV. Thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Will.
Yeah, we're glad to get to hear your story. And for those of you out there, you may have heard Nathan Rinne's name. You've probably seen some Facebook posts, and you've heard all kinds of things said, whether it's from our commissioner, our prosecutor, just on Facebook. But a lot of people haven't taken the time to actually get to know and hear Mr. Rinne's side of the story. So over the next 4 parts of this series leading into Tuesday's election, we do just that. And Nathan, we're going to dig right into it. We got a lot to cover. And as I've gotten to know you over the last year or so, I know you're not as passionate or involved in anything as what you feel is corruption going on at Camden County and now having to deal with wrongdoings against yourself. And so I want to take a step back and look at how you kind of got started and what got you involved and so invested in Camden County.
Well, I'd say the first thing that got me involved was the proposal to build the soccer complex with the TCLA. And the reason for that is, I mean, I don't know, I kind of grew up on South Park, so I've always kind of seen like the marketing angle of things and the way they were trying to sell it, the way they were saying, oh, it's going to bring hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and all this, and new jobs, which were minimum wage. And that's kind of the first time I was like, man, I this isn't right. They're going to sell this off and people are going to vote for it. Nobody's going to show up to vote. So we had an impact and got a lot of people to show up, and it was, I think, beat by like 80% at the ballot box. Then shortly thereafter, 2020 rolled around and we got into the shutdown when Greg Hasty and the commission shut us down.
From COVID, yeah.
From COVID, and I had no idea at that time. I mean, I was pretty naive. I thought that a commissioner may have, their authority was roads, budgets, things like that. I didn't know that they could say, you're not leaving your house or you're going to get fined, or if you have more than 10 people in your house, or if you do this with your business, or you're non-essential, you're essential. That never crossed my mind. I never thought that a county commission would be the ones to deal with that. And then I realized that with that much power, well, to be honest, a guy like Hasty, I didn't like him at the helm of that, because I'd seen enough and been lied to enough with him that I realized that power was something that he wasn't really responsible with. And I know he tries to sell it off that, me and my friends, all we want is power. I don't care about the power. I don't want the power. The only thing I want is somebody ethical, honest, and somebody I can trust in power.
And that's the whole point here, too,
Sure.
is just how much power a position like presiding commissioner as well as our prosecutor in our county have. And I was like you. I had no idea just how much power those two have. And it rings true. That's the most 2 powerful positions in our county. And so that happened. And then shortly after that, your guys' involvement, there was other people that started to get involved, and they wanted kind of a changing of the guard. And then James Gohagan was elected as a commissioner. And when he got in there and started, I wouldn't say that they really welcomed him with open arms and treated him fairly.
No, they were out to find dirt, stick him with whatever they could. And then, of course, he gave us a tour of the building that they bought that I contend to this day way overpaid for. And we took some pictures of it, and the next day they strong-armed him and threatened him and everything else. And they also threatened me. I mean, I have the original police report. The officer who showed up heard them making threats against me. So at that point then, I guess my involvement kind of intensified, because I went to pretty much every commission meeting I could after that, just to see to it that, because if you look back at those meetings, when Gohagan, I mean, he's an elected member of this body. He's got the same authority that Greg and Don have, and Greg wouldn't even let him talk. There's a video out there somewhere of a meeting discussing their insurance plan, which is its own story. And James went to talk, and Greg just looks over and says, ah. And at that time, James just was kind of like, okay. He didn't know he was new to the position, so he didn't really know how to exert himself. So I really felt like I had to be there to help back him up.
Yeah.
because he was getting taken advantage of and railroaded. And I mean, even to this day, half the time they don't even tell him what's on the agenda, what's coming up, what to expect, what they're going to discuss. He doesn't get any of the information really ahead of time. And, you know, it's a shame. So,
and we'll keep right along. So not only the strong arming of James Gohagan, who thank God for Commissioner Gohagan and his presence in there, because it has not exactly balanced completely, but it's certainly helped having that sound mind in there. So let's bring up Josh Butterfield, because Josh Butterfield was kind of part of that group that realized there's a lot going on here that is not to be liked or left to be desired from Camden County. He got involved. He ended up getting banned, correct?
yeah. And I mean, Josh, you know, he was there actually the day that James was getting threatened. He showed up and he live streamed because he saw James had called me, long story. And I put out a post saying, hey, anybody that can get to the commission office, get there. And he was live streaming there. So Josh, he's a volunteer. He's a really great guy, got a good heart. And, you know, he was trying to get active and get involved. And after they threatened James, he went around the courthouse filming, which 100% within his rights to do. And he was filming and he was asking questions of employees. Now, did I necessarily agree with that at that time? No, I did not. And I made it known to him that, you know, that those employees don't have anything to do with this. But that being said, he was 100% within his rights to do it. He didn't break any laws. He's not a threatening or intimidating guy. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. A few days later, Greg, I'm at a commission meeting, and Greg brings up that he wants to ban Josh Butterfield. And everybody in the crowd told him, no, you shouldn't do that. No, that's against, what about his rights? He hasn't done anything. He hasn't broken any laws. So Greg and Don voted to ban him, and James voted against it. And mind you, the guys who had threatened James were still at home getting paid during this time. So they're at home getting paid time off. Josh, who didn't threaten anybody, is now banned from all county property, libraries, the courthouse, any property that the county owned. That's what that ban encompassed. And he was banned permanently. He wasn't given a day, a start or an end. He was never even given a letter. He was never, the only notice he got was when he showed up at another meeting the next day, or, you know, a few days later. Greg met him outside and told him he was banned. That's when he first found out. We didn't actually even tell him, because I tried to convince Greg and his secretary, even after the meeting, this is a horrible idea, that you don't have the right to do this. He hasn't done anything. If he was a threat, if he was in here actually, you know, being physical, that's one thing. And then, you know, you have to be very specific and charge him with something. You know, he was never charged with anything. There was never a hearing. But I will say they did ban him in an open meeting, which was kind of nice of them, because when they banned me, they did it in a closed session.
Which we're about to
Sure.
get to. So Josh gets banned, which is interesting. They did that in an actual meeting. It was in the meeting minutes. But then you end up getting banned. And what exactly did you get banned from the courthouse for?
They sent me a letter that said harassment of elected officials and employees. I'd never had any problems with any employees in that courthouse. They basically based it off of an encounter I had with one of the maintenance men who had threatened James and myself earlier in that day. It was that afternoon. I showed up to kind of be there for James and say, hey, you know, I'll be here when you get off. And I didn't know where he was at the time, but I had an encounter with him where, you know, if you watch the video, he circles around me 2 or 3 times in the parking lot, pulls in next to where I'm parked, jumps out, and he's the one that's threatening me. And
it's not exactly the way he told it, though.
Oh, no, it's not the way he told it. And in my court case, actually, the judge found that he was the aggressor. So,
and what did the court rule as far as the banning, not just of you, but as far as the power a presiding commission or a commission's office in general has of banning somebody from county property?
They permanently enjoined them from banning anyone.
Not just that. They kind of let Commissioner Hasty have it.
Oh, yeah. They said it was illegal and a clear abuse of state's power, what he had done. I mean, yeah, if you read that court report or ruling, it's very bad for him. And, you know, rightfully so. I mean, like you alluded to, with Butterfield, they banned him in an open meeting With me, they did it in a closed session meeting, where during that meeting, they were pressuring James, trying to get him to drop charges against the guys who had threatened him.
We had a couple of conversations. Actually, we had 3 separate conversations with him after this all took place. I'm trying to protect the interests of the county because I know we're going to get sued if this goes on down the road. So we tried to talk him out of pressing charges.
You know, they banned me in a closed session meeting. They didn't, it's not in the minutes that I've ever seen. It didn't show up on the website.
Did they send you a letter?
Like 3 or 4 weeks later, they told James to text me or tell me, and he told me, and I said, oh, no. And that's really what kicked it off, because I was like, well, they banned Butterfield, they banned me. They're going to just keep doing this. Everybody that comes to a meeting that Greg Hasty doesn't like what they have to say, they're going to get banned. So that's what made me, that's when I decided, no, I'm going to challenge this. I'm not just going to take it laying down, you know.
Was there at least an escalation of action from Camden County to you? I mean, have you been doing things leading up to this that would maybe warrant?
No, there wasn't. I'd never been asked to leave a commission meeting. I'd never been kicked out. I'd never had any altercations with anybody in there. And mind you, the altercation with the maintenance man, that was in January. They didn't ban me until 3 months later. So, you know, and again, I wasn't the aggressor in that encounter. They tried to paint it as though I was, but anyways, no, there was no escalation of action. You know, there was no, okay, you need to leave this commission meeting today. You're not allowed back, you know, nothing like that. No warnings, no anything. And there wasn't, you know, the 14th Amendment, you have a right to due process. They didn't bring me in and have me tell my side or have a hearing or anything else like that. It was just, you're banned. And 3 weeks later, I get a letter in the mail, only because of my insistence that I got a letter in the mail, because I knew that if I didn't have it in writing, that there would be a bunch of claims as to their reasons. So I wanted to see what reasons you had. And mind you, this letter that they sent me was very plain, very vague. It just said the commission voted to ban you from all county property. If you are found on property, deputies will escort you from the premises.
Now, before we move on to part 2 and wrap up part 1, I got to ask. So this with go ahead and this altercation with you guys and the maintenance men, talk about that building that, you know, you guys feel like you guys overpaid for. How did that all come about, and why was there some confrontation that led to this?
That building was bought for $600,000 from the county attorney, which, hey, no mark on him. I mean, if you could get that kind of money for that building, I would have done it too. But nobody else would have wanted it. Its location, it's right directly behind the courthouse. It has no real road frontage other than the frontage that faces the courthouse. They had a 5-year-old appraisal on it at the time when they bought it. And the appraisal listed the effective age of 20 years, which if you saw any of those pictures with the shag carpet and the lime green tile and the CDX plywood cabinets, that effective age was,
what was the
was
appraisal?
way off. They said it appraised for $700,000. But the weird thing is, you know, and again, I don't want to mark on the attorney too much, but he did represent the bank that ordered the appraisal at the time, and that bank's no longer in business. That bank is gone.
I just see a trend of so many conflict of interest from who you bought it from, who
Sure.
did the appraisal. I mean, it just
And that's the
kind
thing.
of a trend.
They didn't have an inspection done. They didn't test for asbestos or mold or anything else like that. And as you know, recently they did get a test for asbestos, and it is there, and they're having to abate it now, and they're putting a couple $1 million back into it. So I think it was a horrible purchase. I don't think anybody else would have wanted it.
And that's what you guys were trying to uncover and show, that, look, we're not being diligent for our taxpayers.
Yeah, because it's if you look at the building, it started out as a little bitty house, and they've added on to it like 20 times. It's a mess.
And that ruffles some feathers with them.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the city of Camden came in. After we posted the pictures, the city of Camden came in and said they wanted to inspect it. You go look at that inspection. It's posted online for anybody that wants to see it. They failed pretty well every single category of a life safety inspection, other than I think they had new filters in their air conditioner.
Man.
So the thing, what people don't maybe grasp about that is you as a business owner or anybody else as a business owner, if you don't have your exit sign lit up, they won't let you occupy that building.
Right.
The county has occupied this building for a couple years with conditions that nobody else would be able to occupy. It's the hypocrisy I'm not saying that all the
They
things on
hold
the
us
checklist
to a much
matter.
higher standard
Sure.
than they hold themselves.
Yeah,
to.
I'm not saying that all the things on the checklist matter. I don't care about your exit sign. I don't care about any of that stuff.
But we do care about a level playing field.
Consistency.
That if our representatives, want us to adhere to these rules, they should adhere to these
Sure.
rules.
Consistency.
So this is going to take us to part 2, which you end up filing a lawsuit, and then boy, does it start to get a little crazy. So we're going to dig into that on part 2, which you can watch Tuesday night on the 26th, of course, same time. This is part 1 on Mic'd Up with Nathan Rinne. You don't want to miss our next one. Nathan, we'll be back with you soon, man.
All right, thank you.